AM 560. The Answer.
I enjoy exposing the scum Democrats. It's almost easy now at this point. It always has been, really. But the never-Trumper scum coward. That's what I love. They long for a day when they could pretend to be smart. You know, we used to see this here at the station. We had a couple of morons that became never-Trumpers. They used to come to the cigar store and kiss everyone's ass. They were always pansies. Never could stand any of them. But to watch people flip around for the money laundering scheme in the former Soviet Union, that to me might be my favorite, because it is, to me, the most obvious setup of fraud and thievery that will lead, after the audit, to hundreds of billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions being stolen in the former Soviet Union.
The Biden administration has tapped former Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker to lead the effort to rebuild Ukraine's economy. The Chicago native will be tasked with coordinating public and private investments in Ukraine and working to open markets and businesses shut down by the Russian invasion. Pritzker is the sister of Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Their great-grandparents are Ukrainian immigrants.
That must be the reason why we have that scumbag hornswoggler of the Forest Preserve, the Kamala Harris award winner, Mike Quigley, on. Right? They're all Ukrainians. But I remember when they were just Soviets. All of the national pride. Where was that for 80 years when you were just Soviets? When Nikita Khrushchev, who was the leader of the Soviet Union, gave Crimea to so-called the Ukrainian territory that didn't exist. And that's what all this fighting is. But it's more than that. It's about stealing the Americans' money. And I'm getting sick and tired of pretending that this isn't all about stealing our fracking money to the most corrupt country outside of Chirac.
One of the things that Congress has given U.S. aid since this full-scale invasion began is an unprecedented amount of money in direct budget support, which sounds kind of obvious. Of course, we would do that. We want to stand with Ukraine, but it's totally unprecedented, this kind of scale of investment. And we're talking along the lines of about $15 billion in a sense, cash to the Ukrainian government.
For 6 months.
Was famously corrupt, you know.
Is famously corrupt. This is from last week.
Ukraine is suspending its justice minister over what it calls the biggest scandal since the start of the Russian-Ukraine war. Ukrainian officials say they discovered a high-level corruption scheme in the energy sector, including its state-run nuclear agency. It's alleged to include senior officials and President Zelensky's former close business partner. Now, Ukrainian...
Is that the same Ukrainian oligarch that used an asset to bribe Joe Biden? Bribe Joe Biden for tens of millions. And what I love about this, it isn't just the Mike Quigleys or the Penny Pritzkers who were in on the scam. It's the cowardly pansy never-Trumpers, the scum. They always were scum, though. They used to lie. Yeah, I used to have this one guy come to the cigar store. I know you from the Merc. I used to never saw your crooked, useless ass in my life. Those are the biggest never-Trumpers, and nobody can see the bipartisan thievery in this. Here's John McCain in 2013.
Joining me now, Senator John McCain, who I know, Senator, you have just addressed the crowd of protesters there yourself in Kiev. What is it you're trying to do here?
Like the chicken.
Hopefully what we're trying to do is bring about a peaceful transition here that would stop the violence, would give the Ukrainian people what they unfortunately have not.
Oh, that's what led to the Minsk Accord 2 after 1. But this is when John McCain and Joe Biden, along with Barack Obama, after John McCain lost the election, never saw that coming. This is when they overthrew the elected president of Ukraine the first time. Or is it the second time? They overthrew him 3 times.
With different revolutions that have taken place, a real legitimate society. This is a grassroots revolution here. It's been peaceful except for when the government tried to crack down on them, and the government hasn't done that since. but I'm praising their ability and their desire to demonstrate peacefully for change that I think they deserve.
Let me ask you this about the U.S. role. I know that you have wanted the administration perhaps to consider sanctions, something to help boost the anti-government protesters. The question to you is, while we're trying to work on so many things with the Russians, for instance, with Iran and in Syria, is this really a good time for the U.S. to be taking on Russia?
Well, I don't think that we would be taking on Russia. And by the way, I am very pleased with Secretary Kerry's statement. Our Deputy Secretary Victoria Nuland, who was here. Look,
all the scumbags that stoked the war.
People love the United States of America. They love freedom. And I don't think you could view this as anything but our traditional support for people who want a free and democratic society.
Traditional support. That's interesting. By the way, Never Trumper also, along with little Dick Cheney and his daughter. May she burn in hell. And you realize this is at this same time that John McCain had just lost the election. This is when the bribery and the kickback schemes of foreign policy were all being orchestrated by the then vice president, by Nuland, who he spoke of, and by Barack Obama, who would work the greatest political scandal as he tried to overthrow the 2016 election and successfully overthrew Trump's victory in 2020.
Overdrive to clean up loose ends. November 16, 2016, 2 weeks after Donald Trump's victory, Joe Biden is on the phone with Poroshenko. His voice tenser now than before.
This is getting very, very close. What I don't want to have happen, I don't want Trump to get in the position where he thinks he's about to buy onto a politics where the financial system is going to collapse and he's going to be looked to pour more money into Ukraine. That's how he'll think about it before he gets sophisticated enough to know the details.
In other words,
to know the detail. What do you mean? Where you and your scum brother and your dog sister and your crack smoking son get millions of dollars in kickbacks that would make Penny Pritzker blush? Is that the deal you're talking about, scum traitor?
Biden does not want Ukraine asking for more money from Trump. Doing so would cause Trump to look into the details.
So anything you can do to push the Privat Bank to closure so that the IMF loan comes forward, I would respectfully suggest is critically important to your economic as well as physical security.
Critically important.
They had it all worked out, the kickbacks and the frauds.
No, I am not the pen pal, but the phone pal of Poroshenko and Arseniy Yatsenyuk and now the speaker. I literally, without exaggeration, the last 4 years I'm on the phone 2 to 3 hours a week with those folks. There's an overwhelming instinct in Europe to say, hey, before you guys became president, this was owned by Russia anyway. They had a puppet there. What difference does it make? What the hell's the difference? Why are you making us engage in these sanctions?
I know why. I do.
It's rare that I'm speechless. But I want to be sure I understood. The people running the Department of Energy for President Biden's administration shoveled $93 billion, not million, $93 billion out the door in 76 days, and it just happened to be the time between when President Trump was elected and President Biden, their boss, was leaving.
Right in the light of day, financially raped the American people. 3 Democrat administrations. 312-642-5600.
He's Sean Thompson.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
And this is the Sean Thompson Show on AM 560. The Answer.